You've been told your whole life that patience is a virtue, that if you just wait your turn, things will come, that the system will reward you, that hard work eventually pays off, if you just stay in line. But Elon Musk never waited. He never asked for permission, and he certainly never believed that time on its own was enough to deliver anything meaningful. One of the most brutal truths Musk lives by is this: the world owes you absolutely nothing. Not your family, not your country, not the economy, not your employer, not even your talent. This is the first truth that separates the few who reinvent their lives from the masses who remain in quiet desperation. And it hurts, because deep down, we all want to believe we're special, that the struggle alone entitles us to a reward. But Musk's life proves something else entirely. He teaches, through every calculated risk he takes, that entitlement is the first chain you must break. That reinvention begins the moment you realize no one is coming to save you, and no one should. When Elon sold Zip2 and later PayPal, he could have disappeared into luxury, retired young, played it safe. But he didn't. He put everything, and that's not a figure of speech, into building SpaceX and Tesla. He risked everything because he believed in something that no one else did, and that belief didn't protect him. It almost destroyed him. At one point, he had to borrow money to pay rent. His companies were weeks from collapse, publicly humiliated, widely doubted, privately breaking. That's when most people quit. That's when most people say, "I've done enough." But that's where the brutal truth comes in. If you're doing it for applause, you're already lost. Elon didn't push forward to be liked. He didn't wake up at 5 a.m. to be praised. He did it because he believed in something bigger than comfort, and reinvention never happens inside your comfort zone. We live in a culture obsessed with ease, with convenience, with life hacks and shortcuts. But Musk teaches that the only real shortcut is going through the long, grueling, lonely process of building yourself again and again. That's the first brutal truth most people can't swallow. You have to outwork who you were yesterday with no guarantee of who you'll be tomorrow. He doesn't care about feelings. He cares about results. He once said, "If something is important enough, you do it even if the odds are not in your favor." That's not just a motivational quote. It's a battle cry, a declaration of war against the part of you that wants to stay safe, to stay liked, to stay comfortable. Because reinventing your life demands that you abandon everything that made your current life tolerable. The truth is, no amount of strategy can help you if your mindset is built on victimhood. Elon doesn't see failure the way most people do. He sees it as data, feedback, part of the price. Not something to be avoided, but something to be expected. That's a violent mental shift for most people. We're taught to avoid pain, to avoid embarrassment. But Musk runs into it head on, and that's not about being fearless. It's about being willing. Willing to be misunderstood, willing to be hated, willing to stand alone in a room full of people nodding in agreement with mediocrity. Because that's the first step to becoming someone new. You have to stop needing approval from the people who haven't built anything. Reinvention doesn't come from inspiration. It comes from obsession. From being willing to work while everyone else is sleeping, celebrating, relaxing, scrolling. Musk is famous for his insane work schedule, 80, sometimes 100 hours a week. Not because he wants to flex his hustle, but because he believes in urgency, in compression, in momentum. Because waiting for the right moment is just a dressed-up version of procrastination. And that's another truth no one wants to hear. You don't have time. You think you do. But every day you waste preparing, second-guessing, doubting, is a day you'll never get back. Elon lives with the urgency of someone who knows his time is borrowed, not because of death but because of impact. He knows the window for doing something extraordinary is small, fragile, and closing. People say they want to change, but what they mean is, I want to change if it doesn't cost me too much. I want to evolve, as long as I can still be liked. I want to grow as long as I can keep my old life. But you can't have both. Reinvention is a kind of death. And most people aren't ready to die. They aren't ready to let go of the old identity that gave them comfort, even if that comfort is killing them slowly. Musk doesn't pretend the process is easy. He's brutally honest about the pain, the isolation, the fear. He just doesn't let those things stop him. Because the mission is bigger than the mood, and that's the first brutal truth. You're either building something greater than yourself, or you're shrinking into something you were never meant to become. That doesn't mean you need to be Elon Musk, but it does mean you need to stop looking for a way out. The sooner you let go of the illusion that someone somewhere will hand you a new life, the faster you'll realize it's already in your hands, waiting, demanding, testing your willingness to earn it. So the next time you catch yourself blaming the system, blaming luck, blaming timing, stop. Ask yourself one question: what am I willing to suffer for? Because that answer will define who you become. And that answer will be the only thing separating you from the version of yourself that will never show up. Unless you do. You think you're thinking big, but you're not. Most people believe their goals are ambitious, their dreams massive, their plans bold, but they're playing small in ways they don't even recognize. That's the second brutal truth Elon Musk lives by. Your dreams are probably too small. Not because you lack imagination, but because you've been taught to filter your vision through the lens of fear, judgment, and societal limits. When Elon set out to colonize Mars, it sounded like science fiction. When he announced Tesla, the world laughed at the idea that an electric car could compete with giants. When he pushed forward with reusable rockets, industry experts called it impossible. Every major goal in his life has sounded ridiculous at first, because that's what big dreams sound like to small minds. The painful truth is that most of us aim for what feels achievable, what sounds reasonable, what won't make us look stupid if we fail. So we set goals that are just a little outside our comfort zone. We stretch ourselves a bit, but never enough to break, never enough to be truly transformed. And in that, we sabotage the very potential we claim to be chasing. Musk doesn't start with what's possible. He starts with what's necessary, what's visionary. He doesn't ask, "What can I do?" He asks, "What must be done, even if no one's done it before?" That's a dangerous question, a radical question, and it forces a different kind of thinking, not based on limitations, but on consequences, on the deep, unsettling idea that maybe it's your responsibility to do the impossible, not because you can, but because no one else will. This kind of thinking doesn't just change your career. It changes your relationship with reality. It forces you to confront how many of your beliefs are inherited, how many of your limits are borrowed. And once you start seeing that, you can't unsee it. You realize that playing small isn't humility, it's fear dressed up as virtue. Ask yourself right now, what would you build, create, or pursue if you weren't afraid of being laughed at? If you weren't trying to make your dream sound realistic at parties? If you weren't editing your ambition to fit into conversations with people who've never risked anything? Because that's what most people do. They shrink their dreams to avoid discomfort. They modify their vision until it fits neatly inside what's been done before. And then they wonder why their life feels repetitive, uninspired, hollow. Musk isn't afraid of looking foolish. He's been laughed at, criticized, doubted, dismissed by the media, by peers, by entire industries. But he keeps pushing, not because he's addicted to rebellion, but because he sees what others refuse to look at. The future isn't waiting for permission. The future belongs to the ones who demand it. Most people don't have a vision problem. They have a permission problem. They're waiting for someone to validate their dream, to tell them it's smart, achievable, impressive. But no one gave Musk permission. He didn't wait for the world to catch up to his ideas. He dragged the world forward, even when it resisted. You can see this mindset in everything he does. He enters industries not to compete, but to transform. He doesn't ask, "How do I do this better?" He asks, "How do I do this differently?" That's the difference between iteration and innovation. Reinvention doesn't come from polishing the existing model. It comes from smashing it to pieces and rebuilding it from nothing but first principles. First principles thinking, another Musk trademark, is brutal because it strips away everything comfortable. It demands you abandon assumptions, traditions, and the way things have always been done. It forces you to stop thinking in analogies and start thinking in absolutes, to stop asking what others have done and start asking what actually makes sense. Most people never do this because it's terrifying. It's easier to follow blueprints to replicate success formulas. But Musk doesn't believe in formulas. He believes in frameworks, in understanding the deep mechanics of how things work so that innovation becomes inevitable, not accidental. And that's where this truth hits hardest. You can't reinvent your life if you're thinking inside a system designed to keep you exactly where you are. Your thoughts are the blueprint for irreality. If you keep thinking with borrowed assumptions, you'll keep building the same life over and over. Look around. Most people aren't building their lives. They're copying someone else's, they're following someone else's timeline. They're chasing someone else's definition of success. And they wonder why nothing feels real, why they can't feel alive inside the life they created. That's the trap Musk avoided. Not because he had better answers, but because he was willing to ask better questions. Questions like, why can't we build a rocket company from scratch? Why can't electric cars be cool and fast? Why can't we build tunnels to fix traffic? Why can't we train AI to benefit humanity instead of destroy it? And maybe that's the question you're not asking. Why can't you? Not why can't you be Elon Musk, but why can't you think for yourself at that level? Why can't you dream with that intensity, that audacity? Why can't you aim higher, not to impress others, but to wake yourself up? Because your brain is hungry for challenge. Your soul is starving for a mission. You weren't built to play it safe. You were built to chase something so meaningful that the failure would be worth it. Musk understands that. He lives it. He fails in public. He bleeds in the spotlight, and he doesn't stop. Because the dream is bigger than the embarrassment, the world will always try to shrink you, to compress your imagination into what's realistic. But you can't lead a visionary life with a realistic mindset. You'll spend your entire existence trying not to fail instead of trying to fly. So what are you aiming at? What does your life demand of you that you've been too afraid to pursue? What are you not doing because you think it might make you look stupid? Whatever that is, chase it. That's where the reinvention begins. Not in playing safe, not in fitting in, but in daring to look ridiculous in the pursuit of something that matters more than your reputation. Reinvention is not a switch you flip. It's a fire you feed. The truths you've just heard are not comfortable, and they're not meant to be. They're meant to disturb something deep inside you, to shake loose the parts of your identity that have grown rigid, predictable, and numb. Because the brutal truths Elon Musk lives by are not just strategies. They are reflections of how far a human mind can stretch when it stops asking for permission to change. Maybe some part of you already knows that the life you're living isn't the one you were meant for. Maybe you felt the quiet panic of routine, the subtle ache of untapped potential, the invisible weight of being less than you know you could be. That's not failure. That's your soul refusing to settle. That's your inner voice whispering, there's more. There's still time. Elon Musk didn't become who he is by being fearless. He became who he is by moving through fear, by being willing to lose, to break, to bet on a version of reality that didn't exist yet. And maybe that's the challenge for you now, not to imitate his journey, but to confront your own. Not to copy his thinking, but to question everything you've accepted without proof. You don't have to build rockets, but you do have to build you. You have to become someone your younger self would be astonished by. Someone your older self will thank. Someone who stopped waiting for the right moment and started creating it. Your reinvention doesn't start with certainty. It starts with a decision. A small, quiet, defiant decision to no longer be who you were yesterday. To become the architect of a life that's terrifying in its potential. And to keep moving forward even when no one claps, even when it's lonely, even when the voice in your head says you're not ready. Because here's the truth no one will tell you. No one is ready. Not Musk, not you, not anyone. We don't act because we're ready. We act because staying the same has become more painful than the risk of change. So if something in this video stirred you, if something resonated so deeply that it made you pause, don't ignore it. That's your future knocking. That's your next self asking you to stop running from the edge and finally leap. And now, I'll leave you with a question to sit with. What brutal truth are you finally ready to face? In order to become the version of yourself you've always felt was waiting? Let us know in the comments. Not just what you think, but what you feel. What truth hit you hardest? What shift are you ready to make? And if this video meant something to you, if it sparked a thought, a vision, or a decision, like it so others can find it too. Subscribe so you never miss the content that challenges you to grow. And share this with someone you believe is on the edge of their own reinvention. This isn't the end of the video. It's the beginning of something in you.